Spring really has sprung around here at Florists on Farms. It is late March and it has been a cool spring, but I'm finally seeing the signs of a lot of my perennials returning, as well as flowering bulbs coming up. And one of the first bulbs to start blooming for me on my cut flower farm are the daffodils. I grow a lot of fancy daffs or narcissus. This is a beautiful fragrant double daffodil with a peachy center called Dulnaso. And a few of my other ones are flowering right now as well. So over the past few days, I've gotten to harvest quite a few long stem daffodils from my flower field. And in this video, I wanted to show you how I combine a couple of perennialized or returning cultivated flower types like these daffodils and mix them with fillers that I gather from my landscape in order to add perceived value and interest into the final bouquets. So let's go take a walk through my gardens and my forest to gather up some more ingredients to really make these bouquets pop. First things first, I'm stopping under the old apple tree to harvest stems of the other flower that I want to feature in these bouquets with the daffodils, the gorgeous hellebore. My hellebores are going crazy this year. We had enough snow cover in late February when we had this very, very cold freeze that I didn't lose any of the blooms this year, as I sometimes do if we get a very late freeze and blooms are a foot above the ground and we get in, say, anywhere from a -5 to a -10 degrees Celsius for a week or more. Usually the blooms don't survive, but this year we had a rare snow cover that protected them. So they are absolutely gorgeous, and I think they're enjoying the cool and damp spring that we've been getting because they are so tall. So lots of blooms to harvest. I'm picking them now at the perfect time when I'm seeing some ripened blooms on each stem so that they don't just wilt right away in the vase and they're a bit easier to deal with. For more on when to harvest hellebores for success, check out the video that I made on these last year. Next, I'm going to move on to these daffodils that I've been harvesting for several days. These daffodils have been in cold storage for anywhere from 1 to 3 days. I store my daffodils dry, so they don't sit in water, they just go in my cooler dry. And they store really well like this, and at the right conditions can store up to 2 weeks like this without a loss in vase life. If you want more information about how to do that, plus when to harvest various types of daffodils and all sorts of other information about using daffodils, I have a very comprehensive video on daffodils that you can check out. So before I go and use them, I'm going to need to trim them and condition them in some water and get them drinking again. This is particularly important for daffodils because when I want to go and mix my daffodils with other types of flowers, one of the concerns with daffodils is that they leak out of their stems when they're cut a slimy, sappy material, a mucilage. And what that substance does is it can clog the stems of the other types of flowers in the arrangement or in the bouquet, and then those flowers can't drink up enough water and it will reduce their vase life. So what I want to do is get these daffodils cut and sitting in water long enough that that mucilage, that slimy substance, can leach out of the stems so that then the daffodil can safely be combined with other types of flowers. Now the key with this is I'm going to try to avoid recutting the stem. It's debated whether or not that second cut of a stem is going to release a fresh input of the mucilage. So for the most part, I like to try to play it safe and just avoid that second cut, which means for the cut that I want to do right now, I want to choose a standard stem length, and I want to make sure that all of my daffodils are at the final stem length of what they're going to be in the mixed bouquet. So I'm just going to pull a hellebore stem for a minute that's not quite as tall as some of the others, and that is just so that I can compare that stem length against the various daffodil varieties that I have here that have a varying length, and just make sure that my daffodil stems aren't going to be too long. So just to make this quick and simple, I'm bringing the heads of my daffodils all to about the same height here. And then I can take my hellebore, which is my stem length guide, and there's not very many, as you can see, that are going to be really much longer than the hellebore. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim those ones based on this length straight across for starter. So that's my stem length. And now I'm going to go in and get all the ones that are a little shorter. I think I've got them all. I'm just going to prop them up on the table for a minute, and then I can have a look here and make sure that I've given a fresh cut onto all of these stems. Great, so I've got a bucket ready. There's just a small amount of water in. Daffodils don't love a ton of water, so just 1 or 2 inches of water in the bottom of my bucket. And I can settle these in, and these can sit alongside the hellebores and drink until I'm ready to work with them. So the floral component that I'm featuring in these bouquets are hellebores and some beautiful tall daffodils. The rest of the ingredients that I'm going to gather are going to be from my landscape and our woods, just to help to add some size and interest to the bouquets. Behind me is our cedar hedge. I actually love this particular type of cedar, both for bouquets and for wreaths. It's early enough in the spring where I tend to include a bit of cedar in my bouquets. As long as I'm including it with some other springy ingredients, I don't feel that it gives too wintry of a look to my bouquets, and my customers certainly over the years haven't seemed to mind. There really is slim pickings for me outside of the cedar in terms of what I could be including for a quality, long-lasting foliage. I do have a laurel hedge that I could use, but I always find the type of laurel we have is very large leafed type, and I just find for certain bouquets the leaves are just too large and they really look awkward sometimes. So the stems that I want to be harvesting off here are actually at the top of the hedge. So I need our orchard ladder, and I'm going to be climbing up and getting the tips that are more of the fresher growth. They have a bit more of a brighter color to them, and they're a bit more linear. Those are the ones that I want to make bouquet work easy. A lot of the bits that are on the sides here are sort of too clumpy and sometimes not straight or long enough stems. All right, so floral components, check. Bulky filler to add some size to the bouquets, as well as just make them easier to assemble, giving me a bit of shape to work with. Got that. So everything else that I'm going to be adding is going to be to add some fresh looking texture to the bouquets, or add some height or something interesting. Another ladder behind me. It's a ladder theme today. I am going to grab some stems of my curly willow. It grows around our patio and we love it, but it gets tall really quickly, so it's time to prune this puppy back anyways, and I may even take some cuttings from it because now is a great time for that. So I'm going to grab some of that, and that is going to add some interesting curvy lines as well as extension upwards out of the bouquet, and just give it a little bit more height and interest. As usual, I'm also going to be heading into our wooded area to go and find some material here. If you follow me, you know that I make extensive use out of this space, and I gather everything from moss to several different native plants that I utilize in my designs. Today, I'm on the lookout for some native salmonberry. So here all around me is a stand of salmonberries. The reason why I want to use salmonberry is because it looks a lot like raspberries, especially at this young stage when the leaves are just starting to emerge. The color of the leaf is a beautiful bright green, and the texture has a very raspberry-esque sort of look to it. This is a perfect example right here. You can see the raspberry feel that this has. So I'm going to be grabbing some nice long stems of this. Some of them get thorny as they go down, so I avoid those, or I bring a little stripper along to deal with that. Next up, I'm standing under an old cherry tree. This is a white blooming cherry, and in the past, I've even sold these branches as bunches. Today, I'm going to climb up in here and grab some stems that are just going to augment the bouquet a little bit. And what I like about them is that they aren't open yet. They are in bud form, which is the ideal time for me to be moving these out in bouquets, so that when they get brought inside the warmth of a house, that will signal them to start opening up, giving a nice long vase life for those. And also because the daffodils don't have a super long vase life, maybe 5 days, maybe 6 days. So as the daffodils fade out, my plan is that the cherry blossoms will then start to kind of come into their own and give something interesting just to extend the life of that bouquet. Almost a bit alien looking, but they bring a really cool, eye-catching feature into bouquets. And my customers are often asking me, what are those? And then being just delighted and surprised when they open up in their bouquets to reveal beautiful white cherry blossoms. Moving inside to my studio, I just have one more ingredient I want to show you. This is kind of hilarious because I had Steve up a ladder as well yesterday pruning our crab apple that we wanted to take down. So these reddish leaves I thought I would save for the bouquets as well, because they tie in so beautifully with the reds and the reddy purple hellebores. So that's everything, and everything's had a chance to rest and condition now according to its own needs. So again, the hellebores have some special treatment. You can check that video out. And I also have a video that goes into great detail about harvesting daffodils and when to harvest them and how to store them and treat them and handle them and mix them safely with other types of flowers. But in a nutshell, the hellebores have been resting in very deep water after I placed a slit along the stem. And before I go any further, I just want to show you I have two varieties of hellebores here. I have Ice and Roses Red, which is a darker hellebore, as well as Ice and Roses Rose or Pink. I'm going to organize my table now. I'm going to lay out bundles of each of my ingredients to make my bouquet making efficient. And I need to prep some of the stems. So for example, on these cedars, I need to trim off the bottom branches here to clean up the stem so that only my stem will be in the water and in the binding point, keeping my water clean and reducing the amount of bacteria that's going to get into the water and shorten a vase life. So I'm going to get all that done before I start making the actual bouquets, and then that makes the bouquet making a breeze. So here's what it looks like. I have my first ingredient is the hellebores, and then the cedar. I have the daffodils up here in a vase just to make grabbing them easier. My salmonberry, my cherry, my crab apple, and my curly willow. And then I have sisal already cut into bouquet tying lengths here in a little container, and my snips at the end. I also have my bouquet length notched into the table here so that I can quickly cut all my bouquets to the same length based on the end of my table. All right, let's throw these bouquets together. I'll just tilt this camera so you can see the table from this angle as well, see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to grab my first stem of hellebore and cedar, and I'm gonna basically place them on a sort of an X to begin a spiral bouquet right away, which will help show off my flowers better. I'm gonna put a daffodil in right away, and I'm gonna pull the rest out. I'm doing 5, and then that way I don't have to count again. I'm gonna switch these because this guy's so tall, so I want that one more in the middle of the bouquet. And I'm gonna try to disperse them somewhat throughout. And every time I'm putting a stem on, I'm always laying it again in the same angle. And I try to work in groups. So I'm putting the salmonberry on here. I'm going to grab my other salmonberry right away so I don't have to remember later on to come back and add it. I'm going to put it underneath my bunch on the same angle and just grab it with my fingers at the back of the bouquet. That way it's done. And I'm going to get the rest of my cedar in. Same thing on the back there. Now I'm going to add my other hellebore. Have a quick look and see where in the bouquet I want a bit more cedar to finish this one out. Actually put it on the inside. So I'm still trying to get a sort of roundish shape. Put my cherries in, so there's one. So the other one will go on this side somewhere. And my crabapple. Putting 3 in. So that's like the bulk of my bouquet, and now I'm just going to come back and put the rest of my daffodils in. This guy's a little low. Just put these in sort of where I see a need to sort of quickly intersperse them throughout the bouquet. And just always being careful to go always in the same direction on my stems. And that will really help also to protect the soft daffodil stems from being damaged. A crisscross stem method is just not a good idea, especially for these particular flowers. Now I'm just gonna put 2 curly willows in and sort of want them pointing into the bouquet. And because I have a spiral, I can actually open up my bouquet and thread them into where I want them. And they're just going to elevate the bouquet and add some interest and some height. Now I'm going to come down to the end of my table and check the length. So this is the approximate height that I want my bouquet. So I'm just checking to make sure all my daffodils are pushed up and out of the way. And then I can cut the rest of my stems to that height or length, I guess. Okay, and then any woody stems besides the cedar, I'm not worried about those, really. I'm not concerned, but the cherries and things, I'm going to, they're woody stems, they're going to get a extra cut up into the stem, a slit into the stem to help encourage water uptake. So there we have the first bouquet. I'm going to set it behind me at the back of the table here and carry on and make a few more and then get them in water. All of my bouquets are made. It is time to wrap and get some of these out onto the flower stand. I'll probably wrap some of them and then I will keep some of them just without wrap. It's easier to store them in my cooler that way. My wrapping table is behind me. You can see I have a paper roll. So I use paper sheets to wrap my bouquets and I custom cut the sizes as I go as well for each bouquet batch. So that takes a little more time and it's something that I like to do because it's beautiful and it adds some aesthetic to my finished product. But if you're looking to speed up your bouquet making process, that is one of many little ways that you can make changes. For example, using sleeves instead of wrap is one of many ways that you can speed up your bouquet making process and get your bouquets done a lot more efficiently and affordably. If you are wanting to learn more about that and how we handle bouquet making on scale and make tons and tons of bouquets really fast on a commercial scale, I did publish a series on that last year. And it just looks a lot more closely at how to take a bouquet making process like what I'm showing you today and how to make changes and trade-offs to just enhance your speed and get these things made a lot quicker. All right, I've got some bouquets wrapped and ready to go out to the flower stand. Before I do that, I'm going to take a few video clips of them. I used to spend a lot of time taking really beautiful photos of my bouquets for the flower stand, but I find it just as effective, if not more effective, to post a quick video reel of my bouquets, and that saves me a lot of time. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna get a few seconds of coverage of these bouquets to show my customers and get them to get in their cars and drive down to my roadside flower stand. Before I go, I just want to thank you for watching. I hope this video has been illuminating for you. If you have any questions or anything to share, please drop me a note in the comments. I love hearing from you. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next time.